So when Mrs. Chambers called me and said, "Hey, what are you doing this weekend?" Literally, those were the words. And I was like, I don't know. I asked my wife if I was doing anything this weekend. Because she would know. And she said, "I don't think so." So I said, "Nothing. Well, how'd you like to do?" And I was like, "Great." And then the first thing that crossed my mind was, they've already got the music. So I said, "Well, what are they playing?" And she told me the 5 pieces, and like, Leslie, I only know one of those 5 pieces that he picked. And that would have been really uncomfortable to try to conduct a bunch of stuff that you're not familiar with. And she didn't have the scores, and neither did I. So fortunately, I got to pick the music. But I did keep one of the pieces that he had picked, and it's entitled "Sleep." And it's by Eric Whitacre. Eric Whitacre is a wonderful composer who composes a lot of choral music, and then they take that choral music and they transcribe it for band, and it makes wonderful band pieces. And he's got one called "Sleep," one called "Rest," Luke Sarunke. There are several pieces that were originally written for choir and then transcribed for band. This piece has a really interesting story that I want to share. It's very short with you. Eric was asked to compose a piece of music for a lady who was a singer and sang in a choral group, and it was to be in honor of her parents who had died just weeks apart after their 50th wedding anniversary. And she thought it would be a fitting thing, and her choir was going to sing it, and so Eric was like, "Oh, this is great." And she said, "I would like it on the poem Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening," a Robert Frost poem. And he's like, "Oh, I love that poem, great." So he took the poem and he wrote the piece for the choir, and he said, in his own words, he spoke about how much time he spent to have every syllable with the correct emphasis and all of those things, and just an enormous amount of time putting that poem to music. And they performed it with the group, and it was wonderful, and it was premiered at a music educators convention by a choir, and he soon began to get emails and phone calls and letters saying, "Where can we buy this work? It's an amazing piece. Where can we get it?" And just at that time, he found out that even though a couple of years earlier, the estate of Robert Frost had released this poem and a number of others that could be then used and set to music, that so many people took that poem and set it to music that they put a stop on it. And so here he wrote this piece of music on that poem, and it was illegal to publish it. He could not get the rights to publish it. And so he said this, and they said, "Well, you can do it when it becomes public domain, which will be in the year 2038. So this was going to, as he said, sit under his bed for 35 years until it was public domain and he could publish it. So instead, he said, "I visited with my wife, and he has a very good friend who is a poet. And so he took the music to the poet, and the poet wrote this poem called "Sleep" to go with the music." Now, I don't know how much you know about writing music, but he had to write that poem in the exact cadence, with the exact stresses, with all of those things that "Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening" had, which just blows my mind. I'm like, no, you can't do that. And he did. So there's a really great poem for this. I'm not going to read you the poem, but just know that the poem is about, fancy that, sleep, but it's about wanting to go to sleep, but your mind being so busy that you can't fall asleep, and then finally drifting off into sleep. And I don't know about you, but that happens to me a lot. And so this, I guess I can relate to this piece of music. It's a very, very beautiful piece of music, and I think you'll be able to just close your eyes and imagine laying down, closing your eyes, getting ready to go to sleep, and then your mind gets so busy that you can't fall asleep, and then you drift off to sleep.